Setting up.
Welcome to the stream, people who are most likely watching the recording, because nobody ever sees this part
Mhm.
when we're warming up.
That's true. That's true.
Oh, it's Wednesday jazz.
I have affected the algorithm for sure.
Toby is still being bombarded with suggestions for live radio stations on YouTube. Although, you don't super have to set up the monitor, because in theory, chat's working,
Yeah.
but we'll only really know.
In case it drops, at least it's ready.
Yeah, my view count doesn't stay steady. That the unified view count works in the beginning and then tends to disappear. I'm drinking ginger tea.
And I am attempting to do this episode without glasses,
Why?
just to rest my eyes.
That's such a weird thing to say. Rest your eyes by not wearing your glasses.
Because my glasses are more reading.
Yeah, but you're reading.
It's far, so it's a bit.
Fine.
It's less hard to read because it's far. It's ever since the laptop effed up the monitor again. Yeah.
Help Toby get a new computer. Hey, Pico. Jinx. Hello.
And as you can all see, we have repeated our shirts.
Yeah, we're doing the TARDIS again, because science fiction, yo!
Mm-hmm. Oh, I forgot to bring down the light a notch because we are in dark shirts.
You can still adjust it. It's early. Patreon for Toby. Ironically, Toby does have a Patreon for his RPG stuff.
Yeah. Hey, Mai.
Oh, we're now observing there's a delay between the comment appearing on YouTube versus when it gets pulled into Restream. So Restream is a little late because it's API driven.
Mm-hmm.
Isn't it fun? We're like a little clubhouse. It's like, hey Pico, hey Mai. Saying hi to everyone. All hanging out here with Baduy Pride for the night. And I see you're all favoring Facebook. I have lost my unified view count again.
Well, they're favoring YouTube.
YouTube, sorry, yeah. Just understandable. We still broadcast to Facebook because we think it's still easier for discoverability.
Mm-hmm.
And then, but we appreciate the support you continue to show the show. I know Pico will always retweet my ad.
Hey, David.
And you have to be here, David. This is your topic. Although slightly tweaked, we found a new framework for it.
Mm-hmm.
Because it's hard to find like a favorite trope. Oh wow, Pico, you're still committed to a non-Facebook life. I admire you. My work involves Facebook. I cannot leave.
Mm-hmm.
That and family. So
Yeah. Although I'm tempted to shift to a write only and send only social media approach.
so not bother. So unfollow everyone.
Or, I just don't really bother reading that much anymore and just more send stuff out every now and then, like an announcement.
That's fair. That's a mental health exercise in itself.
Yeah.
David mentions he just made it after losing to Kaido again. Aren't you glad you purchased this game to enjoy with your family? It is one way to get through things.
Mhm.
Oh, I like our little YouTube clubhouse. Hey, this is awesome. Then maybe I should give it a shot to get the restream chat working. I don't fully understand the separate app
Mhm.
versus what's going on.
That may be something to consider looking into later on. I guess people use that so they can chat back while doing the live stream.
Yeah, and then there's like a way to pull in the chat supposedly into the stream. I don't know.
But I guess for now, Let's focus on the episode.
Siwa.
It is 9 o'clock. 30
9:01.
minutes starts now. This is Toby.
And this is Rocky.
And if it's your first time here, welcome to Baduy Pride, a little space on the internet where we talk about anything we want.
This is completely unscripted, but not entirely accurate, but at least it's honest. Join us as we talk about everything and anything random live.
And if it's not your first time here, thank you again for coming back. It's nice that we have this little club and a lot of regulars saying hi to each other while we have our little preamble before every show starts.
Saying club and regulars just makes me miss Obar. Okay,
That's true.
I want my regulars friends.
But given this is the lockdown, so the pandemic, we will make do with our live stream. And here comes 30 minutes all about
Science fiction tropes. Oops, I didn't put the title. Ta-da! Title: Science fiction tropes. This was suggested by David. His original suggestion was favorite science fiction tropes.
Mhm.
And naturally, we started looking online for like what are tropes that we could talk about, and ended up just liking the article, and then figured, hey, let's just talk about the article.
We looked at some online resources to see the many tropes. At first, we were considering, getting a list from those.
Yeah, we're our usual like when we do our board game list. And
But
like,
then, as
we'll
we
come
were
back.
looking at it, really realized we had a lot to say about it. So
Yeah, so we're just gonna go through the list and like say yay or nay. So this particular article, and I think I put the link in the description for both versions of the video, is and I'm gonna keep it like this way. Sorry, it's not super readable, but it is an old Barnes and Noble article from last year about the 25 greatest science fiction tropes ranked.
Mhm.
And you know that the listicle is a classic clickbait maneuver, so
Mhm.
that we can do precisely this: argue about the article and whether or not it's right.
Now, we won't be arguing about the details of the article, meaning we won't be reading the article.
We're not
Instead,
going to question the methodology or
Yes.
anything. We're just going to cite. Look at the example.
We-
The main list item.
Yeah, by looking at each item that's on their list, we will then discuss how we feel about that item being on a tropes list.
Yeah. So, and it's a list of 25 things, so we don't have a lot of time. So here we go. So the first one they list is Cryosleep. And Cryosleep is interesting. I think you'll most remember the likes of Aliens
Mhm.
and those movies that because of the challenges of interstellar space travel, one solution is to put everybody to sleep
Mhm.
and only wake them up when you arrive.
Given the vast distances and amount of time necessary for the journey, for science fiction tropes for science fiction that did not resort to a
Faster than light approach.
or space warping dimensional travel, they opted to have the pilots and the crew sleep it out because while they're sleeping, you can assume every system is aging slower.
Well, because there's special chemicals and things. And I'm always iffy on Cryosleep. I'm not a big fan, or at least I always feel like it is a step, it is part of the progression. Like in Star Trek, that earlier colony stuff still relied on Cryosleep until they figured out warp drive. So, I mean, like, I like it as a stepping stone. I don't like it as a main mechanic.
I feel it's a hallmark of hard sci-fi in the sense that we really don't have a solution on how we will cover such vast distances unless we're talking about ships that have a crew that understands they have to have generational families during the journey.
Which is weird, right? We're going on a mission to have kids.
So the trope exists.
Ooh, my
because-
site's Dark Matter. Yeah, I like that show. Okay, that was a good show.
But with the existence of that trope, I feel it lends more to sci-fi horror than it does to sci-fi.
It's
Because the basic journey of traveling and you'll be sleeping during the journey is boring.
yes.
But if you start putting in thriller and horror elements wherein maybe you wake up and the crew's missing, or maybe you wake up and someone else is on board, or maybe you wake up and somehow it's a different ship, then suddenly it becomes interesting again.
Yeah. So Aliens did that well, and for example for Dark Matter, it was good because they woke up without their memories, and so that was like a good twist on Cryosleep. So yeah, I get that because of the whole you don't know how much time has passed element. It does lend itself to suspense thriller kind of story structures.
People comment?
That's a long comment. Let's highlight it. It's also interesting because sometimes Cryosleep is being used to preserve the hero and Protect from the outside influence. Yeah.
Well, at least that's what it implies, because the most movies like to use that as what it's supposed to do, and it fails to. My does cite, what was that stalkery film, Passengers, for example,
Oh
had them
yes,
waking up in
that
cryosleep,
was that was
and
bad.
it had all those elements wherein it's not really as what this narrative thought it was supposed to be.
Okay, next one on a related note are generation ships, which is yeah, it's still slow travel concepts where like yes, you have entire generations of people going through the
Mhm.
this journey, and therefore you won't make it to the destination, but maybe your kids or your grandkids will.
I like the concept of generation ships when it's used as backstory, but not as actual
Mm-mm.
story. For example, Firefly slash Serenity actually uses generational ships in the sense that a lot of them came from Earth, but the generations don't remember it, so they have that influx of Chinese as the language, and the culture is mixing to the point that by the time it's the Serenity timeline, everything's so intermingled that the old Earth concepts of culture and the like no longer exist. But it's because of the generational shifts that happened. Others would be what? I don't know if Macross counts, because it never. I mean, if you look at Robotech, which is the mix mash of all those different shows,
Yeah,
they
yeah.
did sort of try to have a generational aspect to it, because it eventually leads to Sentinel's Cross.
But it's
To
not a true generational
Yes,
ship where
that's
they're
true.
traveling from one point to another, and again, you only expect your kids to arrive.
Hmm.
So, not a big fan of this. I'm surprised it ranked higher than Cryosleep. Okay,
Okay.
next one,
Psychics.
the generic psychics, and I like how it's a sci-fi trope. I put in the middle. Um,
Why?
um,
Why do you say that? Do you feel it shouldn't be a sci-fi trope?
oh well, there is because sometimes a lot of it feels semi-mystical,
Mm-hmm.
um, and such. But then I still respect it as a sci-fi derivation. And then I like how I mean, sorry, we played Aeon Trinity, the
Mm-hmm.
RPG system, and there it really implied all the special abilities they had were kind of psychic related
Well,
in nature.
as that quote says, right? Anything that is sufficiently of advanced science becomes indistinguishable from magic.
Yeah,
Um, Many actually use it the other way around, wherein they want magic in their sci-fi story, but they call it psychic powers instead.
that's true. It's like how every single comic book, whatever movie, or recently, like if you have superhuman abilities of your own, most likely or not, it's gonna boil down to psychic and a lot of squinting at the
But
screen.
then again, one I guess should look at it in the sense that there are actual psychic concepts
Yes,
which are common or popular in sci-fi tropes. But there are also magical concepts that are just called psychic. So, for example, Fringe nicely tries to use a lot of actual psychic concepts
because
in the
there was
show.
there was a lot of like drug-driven psychic
Yes,
abilities
or
and
they're based on
enhancements.
genetic manipulation, or on the old studies that were happening in the government during those eras. Compared to, let's say, I'm sorry, but Star Wars,
Mm.
wherein the
The
Force as a
Force.
psychic concept is really more just really magic. But they like to still try to make it sound like it's
Controversy.
a science fiction idea.
Yes, yes, I get that. So it really depends on the flavor. I mean, I'm a guy who loves Dune, and psychic abilities are a key pillar of Dune.
What kind of psychic, though? Are you the type who believes in there are psychic powers because you're inborn, or are there psychic powers because it's genetically or chemically induced?
But isn't that also the inborn implies a genetic legacy?
Mm-hmm. A mutation of some sort,
Yeah. I mean,
which
I'm
then
I'm
made
okay
it. So
with
they're now
people,
mutant powers and not psychic
which
powers.
again, all mutants, squinty. But I'm super okay with that.
Hmm.
Oh, and then my highlights, Deanna Troy, who was an empath, but that was like the whole alien race is empathic. It's like Saturn
Yeah.
girl. It's like
Pico
we're
cites
all.
clairvoyance comes to mind when psychics are mentioned.
It is one derivation, but
And
it also implies absolute future.
yeah, and clairvoyance was actually one of the more quote unquote realistic psychic powers that was being investigated on during the questionable era in our history, wherein the military was attempting to find people who could use these clairvoyant powers for war. But yeah, remote viewing and the like, which then connects to psychometry and and the like. And but yeah, let's move on to
Ancient astronaut. I think Toby likes this more than I do because I can't stand ancient aliens.
Okay, so ancient astronaut theory is all about the idea that the aliens visited us in the past and gave us the technology.
Yes.
I am not a fan of that per se, but I like the idea, which is the other, I guess you could say, half of the equation, is that it also means that in the past we already had such technology, and our ancient astronauts were accomplishing things, but then with whatever cataclysm, etc., happened, we have no proof that they've done so. Which I always like to connect to the modern day. If we had some sort of cataclysm that wiped out the internet,
Yes.
then most
We've
of the
talked about
culture
this.
that people will look at as what we've achieved now would be still the Renaissance era accomplishments and the like.
Or we talked about like imagine far off explorers in the future discovering Game Boy cartridges and like, what is this strange decorative item?
They have weird bricks that
Yeah,
serve
yeah,
no
yeah.
purpose because they have no idea on how to access the information inside. Likewise, we have CD and DVDs, which for them they might think is decorative shiny discs that they love to collect in cases.
Yes.
But in
Ooh.
truth, they were our music collection, they were our movie collection.
Mai has commented the only case of ancient astronauts that I do like, which is Stargate, because Stargate is awesome. And how you believe these aliens are, I don't know, are Egyptian deities and vice versa.
Interestingly, that appeared before it appeared on YouTube.
Really?
Ooh, I
don't
did not
think so.
see
I
it.
think you just didn't notice.
Okay.
Okay. Next one is silly. It's space pirates. Why is space pirates so much higher on this list?
I feel it's not a trope, but more now just
An enjoyed genre. It's like zombies.
for me. I think they just found a way to describe the rogue character in a sci-fi story
Maybe
in a different way.
it's okay because space pirates draws from the analogy that space travel is like naval travel. It's
Mhm.
like sea travel.
Yes.
And therefore if space is the sea of the skies, then you must have pirates out there, which I guess sort of works, but then I don't know. I think as a trope, as a specific thing, I'm not big on it.
I mean, there is the popular Treasure Planet movie. There is the Captain Harlock movie, which are very, very space piratey.
Okay,
But I
fine.
don't feel those were the tropes
Wow,
that they
see,
were referring
your
to.
example, because David already said Treasure Planet. Of course, mine was already saying Captain Harlock because you were saying Captain Harlock. So.
Yes, Captain Harlock. And yes, there is a live action movie for that cartoon. Cowboy Bebop, which surprisingly is questionable because yes, there are pirates in that.
But are they
show,
just thieves?
But they're
and
they're more
rogues?
thieves. They're more heisty. So I don't really know if it applies that they're pirates.
Next
Moving-
one, uploaded
Uploaded
consciousness.
consciousness.
Oh, that's not so terrible. I mean, it relies on many things. It bodies that you can move into, or full transhuman tech
Mhm.
where you can download into a consciousness and
It's
things like
easy
that.
to assume that it's a new concept because people will think, oh, that became popular because of VR, AR. But the
No.
idea of uploaded consciousness was actually very early on appearing in A something Clark.
Hi,
oh my
Mitch.
God, I
Hi,
can't forget their
Mitch.
names.
Arthur C. Clarke?
Yes,
you mean
there,
Arthur C. Clarke?
there.
Oh my God.
And
E
like-
something Clark?
But everything from artificial
Feel the
intelligence
pain on my face.
to bodies that contain the human consciousness. See, now I'm burping. There are amazing literature. Of course, I can only cite in terms of role playing games.
No, but even like if you think about the Surrogates comic,
Yes.
not the movie, because the movie wasn't great, but the comic was that same thing, that downloading, uploading thing. So
and
that's
and even those concepts were already being explored as early as the 70s and the like with Twilight Zone episodes we're in. It's about a person who lives on in a doll.
Oh.
It's not necessarily a digital consciousness, but it's still the consciousness being uploaded somewhere else.
So Mitch, I'm gonna say hi on behalf of Mai, who's over on YouTube. Vice versa. Say hi to each other. Okay, so beyond that, the next one is benevolent aliens, and this list is funny.
Mhm.
But benevolent aliens, like we assume that aliens are generally helpful, which is not bad
It's not common enough a trope.
because it doesn't. generate drama,
It's
and
only
drama is good story.
it's only a trope that exists in settings wherein it's multicultural already, where the aliens are living among us, and there might be some political stuff, but we are
Maybe.
benevolent in it. But
I
in
like
terms
the
of
example of the
aliens,
day the Earth stood still, because again, it's
there,
like misunderstandings.
yes,
Then the real monster is humanity.
and that's where it becomes a trope because almost everyone else just tries to ride that same thing.
Yeah.
The arrival may have touched on that. I do not know how to answer without
Spoilers.
yeah.
Yeah. A bit, but again, it's more often than not the whole benevolent alien is always done as a contrast to show how bad humans are,
Mhm.
and then thus there's more often than not the misunderstanding. That's the real trope
Mhm.
in the benevolent alien story.
Yes.
So not the most compelling thing.
Then you have the opposite side of the spectrum.
Killer aliens, and this is easier to understand because, and to be fair, we can go to the extreme end of the spectrum for things like aliens and predator. I mean, those are literally aliens who are all about
Survival.
killing. Yeah, so that's kind of cute, like the Zerg. I mean, it's a biological imperative.
Yeah. So we have aliens who definitely just kill because they do that to survive. We
Yes.
have aliens whose culture is to kill. That's the
Ooh.
predator.
Or Klingons.
Yeah. And then we have aliens who just want to conquer us or take over us and the like. So that's everything from science to et cetera, et cetera, et cetera.
My mentions benevolent aliens make her think of Vulcans, but only TOS, TNG Vulcans, because Enterprise stressed to us that the Vulcans were not that great. They were kind of a dick. So, whatever. All right. Alien artifacts, which connects to the board game. No, it connects to the astronauts, I guess.
This can be as far as the. Oh my God. See, now I can't remember the name, the title of the movie. Odyssey. Wherein it starts with the black obelisk in front of the cave.
Come, let's all play the game and trying to figure out what movie Toby's talking about. Because we're never going to win. No. I'm surprised that alien artifacts is that distinct or discrete from ancient astronauts. I mean, they kind of go hand in hand because normally the evidence of alien artifacts on a planet is an indicator of alien or ancient
That's true.
astronauts, and
Or that's how they find out.
yeah, it's
that it
kind of
happened.
chicken and egg. And I'm reading the write up, and I don't fully, I'm not into it.
One can look at this also for more modern day stuff, like for example, the Last Starfighter, where an alien ship is then made present to the kid.
But it's not really an artifact. They were running an entrance exam with an arcade game,
Mhm.
so I don't know. That doesn't really count to me. Hey, Jed. Okay, the next one is nanotechnology, which
It's a sci-fi trope.
it's definitely a sci-fi trope. I'm generally okay with it. I just don't like it when it becomes near magical.
I think it replaced a certain trope. Prior to the concept of nanotechnology existing, which includes a lot of instant magical technology, there were the early attempts to talk about malleable technology, thanks to Terminator and the like, wherein things can change.
Liquid metal.
But later on, it becomes nanotech. But then prior to all those, we just had very modular technology and, you know.
Yeah, I mean, I think it just refined, and it because it based on where the science was actually
Yes.
going. And
So from
nanotech feels a lot more feasible.
early Trek, wherein you had a small device which allows you to scan your health and all this and that, which now in the modern day we sort of have with cell phones and tablets. Nanotech had to become we need something higher. We need something beyond.
And if you can't go big, you go small, and that's okay. Nanotech's cool. Next one
Wormholes.
is wormholes. And oh my god, they use contact as an example. I super love wormholes. I super do. Because I was in what, the 6th or 7th grade when I first tried to explain a wormhole to a friend, and like I took a piece of paper and then I talk about the distance between point A to B, but then if you folded space and I punched the pencil through it, and beautiful. So that's I love. I love wormholes.
We have some strange comments.
Okay, so liquid metal and the angels in Neon Genesis, and then was okay in the beginning of Voyager, but by the end it was weird. By wormholes, yeah, that's true.
I don't get Pico's comment.
But he just brought in Katya, so maybe she came in through a wormhole. Who knows?
Oh, contact. I get it now.
Oh, that's true.
Okay.
That's true. But I do like it. I do like wormholes because it opens up interesting possibilities of storytelling. I like shit. What was it? Interstellar.
Hmm. Yes.
Interstellar's whole time dilation aspect because of traveling through Einstein Rosenberg bridges
Hmm.
and stuff. It's
But then it shifts beyond psychic and go love is power. Um,
it gets complicated, guys, because yeah, string theory.
so
Okay.
now that we're going outer space, we have parallel worlds. Basically, there is if there was another you that exists out there, parallel worlds slash parallel dimensions slash um, um,
Mirror universes.
yes. I think it's okay. I think this tends to end up mixing with time travel concepts and the like. Um, I don't know how many used parallel worlds without time travel. Where there is literally another world. For example, DC Comics has Earth, and then there's the Earth 2 world, which is not really a time travel thing, but more they're the polar opposites where all the heroes are the villains
But
and
yeah,
all.
I'm sorry, Star Trek.
Yeah.
It's not a time travel element. It's just that one thing went different, and then the
Hmm.
Federation became this evil fascist whatever. So that the classic mirror universe, which is really just the science fiction equivalent of the evil twin.
Hmm.
They just wanted evil twins. They all have mustaches. Yeah, sliders. Oh my God, Mai, that's a awesome thing to bring up.
Yes.
Sliders, and that's cool. I mean, that was a good show for its time. Spider
Spider-Verse.
Verse. That makes sense too. That's like another good example.
Okay.
What if villains are good people in alternate universe? Yeah, which again is like Earth, the DC Earth 2.
Yeah. So
insane.
moving forward, we have interspecies romance.
Why is this a trope? But okay, it's a trope. But I feel like interspecies romance is just an indirect or maybe even unconscious offshoot of interracial romance.
Yes, I was thinking, as well as queer romances.
A lot of science fiction is just metaphors for contemporary topics.
It's
And
the attempts to explore forbidden romances or frowned upon unions. It was an attempt to explore stigmatization or romantic complications coming from non ordinary romances.
I'm okay, but I feel like we gotta grow past this already. It's like, or like, I think we're at a point where we don't have to hide our non-binary romance discussions and just have non-binary.
Yeah, I
romance
feel it's
discussions.
no longer a trope. It's more if it happens, it's just part of the background that's happening because there is a major story that's happening. Unlike before, wherein it was the focus of the story.
Yeah,
You know,
yeah,
oh my
yeah.
God, you're dating an alien.
Yeah,
And now it's more.
it's not that shocking
Yeah.
anymore, guys. Jed highlights Cloud Atlas is kind of parallel world. Yeah, true. That's very true, and especially the way that the movie was shot and all the
Mhm.
repeating actors and stuff. That was pretty well done. Okay.
Although officially, wasn't Cloud Atlas more repeating mimetic world than parallel because they weren't in the same time, right?
That's
They were
true.
more sort of like this generation, and then in this generation, this character sort of carry over, and then in this generation. So it was parallel, but really more on the idea of generationally things were still being happening in the same pattern.
Mm-hmm.
Um,
The next one's AI Uprising, which I think is separate from Killer Robots. But then, because it's the whole distrust of creating an artificial intelligence. And it's interesting that there are actually many key figures in science and
Mhm.
engineering today who are still quite afraid of the creating an intelligence that is too smart for us.
yeah,
And I get it.
I think ultimately it's the fear that morality is not something that's binary. And unfortunately, technology.
Binary. Okay.
And unfortunately, technology, as we work on it as of now, is still mostly binary. No matter how complicated we have designed artificial intelligences, it still boils down to that ones and zeros in the end, which then make it very frightening because now how do you create a morality system that
Mm.
still uses that as its roots?
It's like coming off from like the social dilemma, or a lot of people have been tweeting like, we need to stop saying the algorithm dictates. Instead, we programmed it to do this. Because to be fair, a lot of algorithms that drive current AIs are still determined by human biases and
Mhm.
assumptions, and it goes along.
Yeah.
I mean,
And if you really want to freak yourself out, you could look up the basilisk idea, but by doing so and telling you this, I have now condemned you to hell.
the singularity is inevitable. Okay, so
Clones.
clones. I think clones has not aged very well. It was fascinating, but a lot of what made clones interesting was the assumption of genetic memory and that
Hmm.
your clones are really you and will somehow remember everything you
Yeah,
remember.
they have attempted both approaches. Like there are clones who are in their you, so they have all your memories, and then there are also clones who are literally just genetic copies, but they aren't you at all. So
Hmm.
they have different personality
But hence that
traits.
goes back to the whole downloading into bodies concept, and I
Hmm.
mean it borrows into the treating the
Dis-
body as just a
Disposable
vessel.
resource.
Yes.
I don't know though if clones um, is still a trope that gets explored often. It almost feels more like it's a escape when they trap themselves in the story.
Maybe. I mean, hello. The article even cites the Prestige, so spoilers. Okay, body modification, where transhumanism
Hmm.
or it overlaps into cyberpunk because they do cite William Gibson. I think this is still highly relevant, especially now. Like you have a lot of body hackers who are
Yes,
trying to use
real
science
world body
to
hackers.
optimize their performance. There are people who are implanting technology left and right and trying to figure out other things. So that's a lot closer to home than it used to be.
Hmm.
Um,
And I think ultimately we as a species just really enjoy comfort. So if something that we normally carry or use or bring around with us can be something literally part of us and we don't have to worry about it, then why not if it's not too scary to do?
I mean, it's along the same lines of how often do you put down your cell phone? Your cell phone has become an extension of you.
Mhm.
I mean, I admit that I have shunted some of my memory functions to my phone instead. I don't. That's why I'm very quick to Google things and look things up on
Mhm.
Wikipedia to answer questions rather than trying to remember answers.
And
And
with that,
that's our evolution,
yeah,
you
and
know.
with that train of thought, if the cell phone can be replaced by a device that, let's say, you wear on your ear the whole time,
Johnny Mnemonic.
but still was in the economical cost range of a normal cell phone, then why wouldn't you have that?
Right?
And then it progresses
Why
further.
wouldn't you? Because you'd have to replace it every 2 years. Surgery every 2 years to
Yeah,
replace your
but imagine
implanted
if the
phone.
surgery could be something totally painless and
We
only cost the same cost as a phone, we would jump into that.
hypospraise. Yes. Okay, the next one is just robots. It's just blam robots. And fine. Again, this is another of those examples where I feel like we have gotten real life has gotten closer than it used to be.
Hmm.
So robots are not that far off now. I mean, we all saw Drag Race and the robot that was indirectly featured in that Drag Race skit. But it's creepy. It's kind of creepy
Hmm.
that especially any YouTube video released by Boston Dynamics. It's like you're gonna get freaked out by all their dog-like things running
Hmm.
around, and that's why it inspired a Black Mirror episode. Um, um, does Alter Carbon count into body mods? To some degree, but it was cited already in downloaded consciousness, and then
Yes.
Cyberpunk will become more near future than distant future. Yes, I
And
agree.
I guess just to add to Jed's question, a lot of the sci-fi tropes do really
There's a lot of
intermingle.
overlap.
There's a
There's
lot
a
of
lot of
overlap
overlap.
because the main point of some is the other. The main point that robots existed for some stories is to upload the consciousness, or the main points that certain implants were created was because of the idea for body modification, or because they have clones and they want to do this, or because they need to time travel, or because they need. So it's a lot of overlap that happens a lot, and sometimes it can be hard to separate the two. Like I know some people get confused when something's a robot or when something's AI,
Mm,
because some might say, well, AI doesn't have a body. But then if you're talking about the artificial intelligence in
that's driving
hardware,
a robot.
then isn't that still just AI driving a robot? So it's not really robots.
Yeah, whatever. So the next one on the list is faster than light travel,
Hmm.
which many argue is like essential to telling science fiction stories because the biggest problem of space is space,
Yeah,
and
is
that everything
distance.
is very, very far away.
Hmm.
And if we spend all our time just trying to get to the destination, we don't have movies, we don't have books, we
Or
don't
we
have
will
TV
have to
shows.
change characters as we keep going through the show.
Yeah, yeah. So faster than light travel, which initially kind of felt very magic in its approach, has gotten a lot of thought over the years,
Mm.
and there are some very interesting theories on how to push faster than light travel. I mean, just look at how Star Trek had a vague warp travel concept which scientists have kind of retconned to give an explanation for how it might work.
Mm-hmm.
And the explanation is the Star Trek symbol. It's awesome. Read the physics of Star Trek. I love
Mm-hmm.
that book.
So there's that idea that faster than light travel seems to work better in some sci-fi content if the duck if the world actually tries to give it certain limits. So, for example, there's the fuel consumption that's necessary for Battlestar Galactica when they use their jump drives.
Mm.
For Trek, there's actually
Yeah, the
the
power curve gets crazy, and
yeah.
you can't go to 10 or otherwise you become a salamander.
Star Wars attempted to have some limits in the sense that suddenly now they're actually traveling and their physical presence is part of that journey. It still feels very unfinal, but it seemed like they attempted to make it more than just
Hyperspace jumps is magic.
yeah.
So, but that's okay. So it's not so much a favorite trope; it's a trope that we can't get away from because it helps tell story. Big dumb objects. I loved it when I saw this on the list. Like, oh my god! And that's why my featured image for this was a photo of my model of the V'ger probe from the Star Trek movie. And then there's like it's like we have a lot of giant things. We like big things, and I
Mhm.
think this always feels very cinematic to
Mhm.
me. That you want to have a giant thing to
I
look at. It's very alien. It's very
yeah.
wow. We could
I
never make
feel
this.
it's a attempt to step up the concept of monuments. Um, since sci-fi is about technology, about things that are built, whereas magic is fantasy realms and all that. Our fantasy realm would have a world, this universe or this strange world. Science fiction, on the other hand, would want something that was built and that's majestic.
Engineered.
And for us, we know we see skyscrapers, we see monuments, and we're like, ooh. So how will
Stargate
sci-fi?
pyramid ships.
So how will sci-fi progress beyond that? So now
Yeah.
they have planet-sized buildings or
Unicron.
moon-sized monuments, and that's the only way they can do it. So everything from ring worlds
Yes.
to ships
Oh my
that are
god.
the size of a planet to
For the what are they called then? The beryllium spheres that surround stars and capture their energy. Awesome stuff. Classic sci-fi tropes.
so it's necessary because the desire to have something monumental in a sci-fi world would mean to build something super big, but at the same time super small.
Yeah.
And that's where we have nanotech and all the other smaller than nanotech.
The next one surprised me on this, but I guess it makes sense. Is mutants, which is continued human evolution, mutation,
Mhm.
getting better, and that's okay. But I feel like it's not as exciting as it used to be, only because comics is like when you say mutant now, you expect Cyclops.
Yeah, or the post-apocalyptic concept of mutants wherein the people aren't so much recognizable as people anymore.
Which is like overlaps with zombies, right?
Mhm.
That science fiction mutants are like the slow mutants in the shoot in the Dark Tower series. I mean, that's a weird mutant concept.
Or the no longer recognizable humans in that.
It's been this much further into the future, and then you can't recognize them anymore. That kind of a thing.
Or the entire
I
planet.
am surprised that
has
mutants
evolved.
is so high on this list. I'm not that impressed with it. As a
I think
trope.
they also included advanced evolution
Yeah.
as mutants.
Okay,
For
the
this
next
list.
one, of course, is dystopian government. And considering this was written last year, it still feels too real, man. But then, yeah, we knew that government has a tendency to go bad, and people have written many stories about super bad governments, and we may be living through times with super bad governments.
One can even say that this is a high trope because idealistic worlds are rarer when it comes to science fiction. There are not that many science fiction settings that have a beautiful world. Most
Again,
are
it ties to the
need for drama.
narrative. Yeah, the narrative structure that we need something wrong for there to be a story. Sorry, because if everybody's happy with all their wishes fulfilled, then not much is gonna happen.
Double checking comments. We have
Yeah, I think we've
what if villains are good people in an alternate universe? Yeah. Cyberpunk has become more near future than distant future. Sophia the Robot. Okay, those were based on their Drag Race comments.
Okay,
Okay.
then now the next one is After the Apocalypse, which ties into sort of the dystopia, but then people who survive beyond an apocalypse period.
Hmm.
They cite, yeah, like the newer books of like Feed and Wool, or things like, or even like the Hunger Games, right? Because there's something really bad happened, and the Hunger Games society is already the weird post-apocalyptic
Hmm.
society.
That Will Smith movie was one of those as well, and had everything become deadly in the planet.
Oh,
But then
oh,
one could even say,
I don't want to think about title. Okay.
but then some can even say the Pixar movie.
Which one? Wally.
Yes,
Yeah,
it
Wally.
was
Wally
a.
is a post-apocalyptic setting. It
Mhm.
is, and I don't mind. I like. There's a lot of interesting because it gets to tie to like lost technology concepts where we knew how to do this before, but because of the cataclysmic event or the ravages of war or whatever, we forgot. I like these things. BattleTech is has ties to kind of post-apocalyptic storytelling.
I think post-apocalyptic is this high on the list simply because for people writing sci-fi stories, it's easier to say whatever the world is now, it's over, and this is our world now, and that allows them
Can
a
you
lot more
imagine what this
freedom.
pandemic is inspiring? I'm sure it's a lot of post-apocalyptic thought, just talking about what life is going to be like next year. You know,
Yeah, I'd love to see a story wherein the virus has evolved and now there are people who are actually living viruses. Anyway, first contact.
first contact with aliens, or at least humans' first contact with everyone. And okay, I get it because we're still a non-spacefaring race, and so it's still a fascinating concept. But then I don't know because I'm kind of getting tired of humans being the barbarians, or humans being very coarse, and aliens being
Mhm.
refined. And whoa,
I mean, even as brilliant as the arrival was, the the first contact narrative didn't really explore new ground. I
hmm,
mean, it touched on a few new concepts without trying to spoil it, but it didn't really do something new for a first contact narrative.
it just gave us many circles.
It was still pretty much contact,
Yeah.
only in a different way. And then you have the terrible types of first contact, everything from life to alien to wherein it does not go well.
District 9.
So I'm not sure if um, I think the closest thing to a unique first contact for me was V.
V for Vendetta. V.
V.
The reimagined V.
Yes.
Yeah.
Actually, even the original
Sorry,
V.
not V for, yeah. V. Yeah, V
Because
invasion. Okay.
because it was doing both at the same time.
Mm, mm.
And that felt nice.
And they ate mice. We were like this V reboot is not going to be legit until someone eats a mouse, and then yes, the mouse was eaten. My highlight: something dystopian and post-apocalyptic world flow into one another. Yes, they have a natural symbiotic relationship, and we like to tie them together all the time. The next one, we're coming up to the end of the list, is time travel, and of course, we can't get away from time travel. I love time travel. We're wearing TARDIS shirts, so but yeah, it's fine. I mean, and there are so many different interpretations for time travel that it's fascinating. I keep remembering that XKCD comic where they
Mhm.
try to visualize different time travel movies.
Yeah.
Surprisingly, I think one of the most refreshing takes on time travel in recent movies is probably Avengers Endgame,
Okay.
because they didn't Bill and Ted it. You know how Bill and Ted is like, assuming we win this battle,
We
I'm gonna
changed
go
things.
back in time and then I'm gonna give myself a hammer, and he
Yeah.
pulls out a hammer from his pocket. The Bill and Ted approach is just ridiculous. But the Avengers Endgame was the whole you are constantly moving forward in your personal timeline. So you really cannot change things that have already
Hmm.
happened to you, but you can manipulate stuff
Hmm.
around it. So that's kind of fascinating.
Doctor Who, of course, is a popular
Super
um,
timey-wimey, all the possible stretches.
as far as proper time travel stories as well as cheating time travel stories. Doctor Who has it all. But I think,
So many fixed points that aren't quite as fixed.
but again, I think Rick and Morty is an
Oh,
amazing example of not just time travel but
and
parallel
parallel worlds.
worlds. But
Aha.
but it has episodes that puts Doctor Who to shame.
You know what we're talking about, right? That one. That
And if
one.
you don't, it's time to start watching Rick and Morty.
Okay, before we get to number one, Jed mentions there's a film about a virus where you're convinced you're going to die the next day and you pass it on to whoever you tell about it. Not sure if you died though. Have to see it, pa. I have not heard of this. What movie is this? That's a strange concept. Of course, my highlight's Dark, and I know that by
Mhm.
highlighting Dark alone is like spoilery, but I get it. I get it. We're still not done with the
Yes.
first season.
Yes.
We will get through it.
But then again, it sort of tells you it is that sort of a story from the start.
Yeah, that's true.
Because it already
the
opened-
past and the present
Because,
is like
and it opens with that scene.
yes. Pico Alex's first exposure to time travel was actually Mario's Time Machine. Oh, that's quite
Mhm.
funny.
Since you just mentioned that, I might as well add, if you want a game that really explores time travel, there's a game called Braid that you might want to look at.
Oh,
It's a platformer
that's a good game.
that forces you to think in time travel ways.
It's an indie platformer that like totally Prince of Persia did, without the thing.
And then if you want a movie that's time travel-y but doesn't feel sci-fi, look for Primer.
Okay, wait. Primer is dangerous.
And you will-
I haven't fully seen Primer.
And you will hate me because you will not get how that movie does make sense.
And it will highlight, remind, there's so many rules of time travel. Yeah,
Mhm.
each time travel thing has a unique interpretation. Like I loved, what's this? I love in Planetary the argument that time travel is bounded by when time travel is created.
Yes.
You can never go back beyond the point where time travel hadn't yet been developed.
Yes.
So in the story, when time travel does happen, hundreds upon hundreds of time travelers all arrive to watch the
That
first
moment.
time travel because it is the farthest point they can go back to, and it was just narratively bonkers.
And it's an awesome concept to limit
yes,
how far you can time travel. But it also seems to make sense because if you could time travel,
wouldn't you?
wouldn't you want to see the very first moment people learn to do it?
So, God, time travel, super, super definitely favorite. David, of course, agrees. That episode, thank you. And yeah, so we get to our last one on this list, which is surprisingly sentient spaceships. Why is sentient spaceships the number one trope? Who made this list?
Well, the author does mention a sentimental favorite I'll defend to the death. So I guess it's really
It's a personal preference.
a huge personal preference. Even cites Solo having a sentient Millennium Falcon.
That's true because they uploaded the robot.
But I don't know if it's that much a trope because it still can be said it's just AI in
That's true.
a ship. One could even say the ship's a robot. Again, the lines blur.
Or it's like how people like argue that because of the organic circuitry of Voyager, then it starts becoming more of a life form than a
Mhm.
vessel. But I don't think so. See, Maya is also with me and like, really sentient ship?
Having gone through the list, though, I guess it's our opportunity now to think of tropes which we feel should have been on the list, or at least a trope you feel was ignored or overlooked.
The one-armed man. No, I don't know.
Me, I think memory things. A sci-fi trope lately that has been quite commonly explored is the importance, malleability, permanence, and transference of memory. A mimetic.
We also watched that
a mimetic
Enterprise
nature
episode
thing.
where they brainwash a Zindi guy.
So there's that in Star Trek. There's Pontypool, which is a horror film about a zombie apocalypse, but the zombie virus actually is a language-based virus. And by speaking by speaking certain specific keywords, you get infected. And once you're infected,
How Metal Gear is that?
you start talking in the Pontypool language, infecting others. So it's a very unique take. The mimetic memory as a concept is also explored in many other sci-fi elements, everything from Total Recall and the like, wherein the concept of the memory itself, not the consciousness, but the memory itself is what's being transferred. Metal Gear Solid uses it a lot as well. And I think it's a concept that can be further developed because if you think about it, in as much as consciousness is data, more specifically, data is just really memory.
But it kind of borders on transhumanist
Yes,
kind of thinking. And
exactly.
because what do you want to do with the memory? So you want to push it somewhere for optimization,
Mhm.
for storage, for better use.
Other lesser approaches that have explored it, Stranger Days, wherein
Unfamiliar.
the people were selling experiences
Oh,
as a
okay.
thing that they could go through in a VR scenario again. So again, it's all about experiences and memories, and not officially the consciousness being what's being shared.
That's
Or
something. That's something.
and in the time of TikTok and everyone making all these memes, it's
Yeah.
literally the next step.
I'm kind of surprised the list didn't have anything related to like uh holographic simulations,
Oh, you're
VR,
right. That's one
AR.
too.
I mean, like, especially how big
Hard light.
VR is now. Hard light. Oh my god! But especially, yeah, especially how big VR is now, and like, how can it not be cited as a trope, or
Hmm.
does it not? Are there not enough stories that celebrate it, or because they looped it together with
Yeah.
transhumanism, cyberpunk
I'm surprised they didn't have energy weapons in the list.
as a trope?
I
That's
guess it's
true.
because it's considered real now that there
We
are.
do have literal lasers, so
but
they're not quite what we
but
thought.
back in the 80s, 90s, sci-fi means you must have lasers. So it's interesting that it's gone from the list.
My highlights: there's a series where the pilot is hooked up to the ship, kind of like Evangelion. Oh, I'm not sure. That could be many different things. Because even the Last Navigator, right, is just like connects to.
Expanse also has that. With they have to hook up to the chemical things in order to handle
Well,
the
they're
G
not
forces.
really like they're not. It's not like they become part. They can't navigate the ship because of
That's
those
true.
connections. That's just a drug delivery system to survive high G forces and adrenaline and all that. Of course, yeah, Pico says Evangelion's a good one. Mind control, yeah, I mean, like, mind control as a concept didn't really like it. Borders on psychic,
Hmm.
but then yeah, there are other methods of mind control, whether it's a device, a drug mix, and stuff. Yeah, that
Hmm.
didn't come up in this list.
And then I guess one last thing that I could add on the list that wasn't there was the alien god. That the concept of a
Mm,
superior being is actually a higher intelligence that exists outside.
maybe that
So,
bundles with big objects in space.
so you
You
have
know,
Prometheus that claims that we were engineered by the engineers. You have Space Odyssey that literally has us evolved because of the presence of the alien
we have
artifact.
Star Trek 5.
Mhm.
We just don't talk about it beyond that. But God was the focus of Star Trek 5.
And in a similar way, Doctor Who explored it. Only it focused on the devil
That's
rather than God.
true, but then we did have deific characters as
Mhm.
alien type things. So
So yeah,
yeah,
I'm surprised it wasn't on the list.
wow, that was a long list, and this is a long episode. So
But that's sci-fi tropes. We've talked about a lot of it.
yeah, I think we've covered all the comments thus far.
I'm
We thank our dedicated core team of commenters and stuff that help make these things possible. And I'm glad that I can now flash comments again and say, yes, lol, narratively bonkers. So,
I'm now curious to find the film that Jed mentioned. I'm not sure if it's the Shyamalan um, movie, The Happening, because it sort of is similar, but that one is the wind and not just being
that was
told.
just angry trees. It's literally plants versus
Yes.
humans, you know?
Ah! But yeah,
No, that movie is worth spoiling. Sorry. I'm not even sorry.
yeah,
No.
because that movie.
Because Mark Wahlberg as a science teacher
Hey,
is totally believable.
hey, he did the same thing in Transformers.
It was even worse. I'm an inventor because you don't think I can be in the sciences, at least I'm in engineering. I'm Mark Wahlberg. I don't know where that voice is from. Okay. But yeah, we go.
So that's 30 minutes.
Let's wrap it up.
We had a lot of fun. And we hope you'll join us again when we talk about other things in 30 minutes.
Yeah. So yes, if you have questions for us, other suggestions like this was a suggested topic that we warped into something else, but that's fine. Feel free to fill out the form at bit.ly Baduy Pride Ideas. Follow us on Twitter. All Toby No Shade, RG Sunico.
You can also check out our blog, that's baduypride.com. You'll see the previous episodes there and a lot of other stuff about us.
Yes. Feel free to continue the conversation in the comments below. I have linked the article in this video description. Read it for yourself. What do you think? And why do you disagree with sentient starships? Be sure to subscribe for notifications, whether on Facebook or YouTube, so you don't miss out our next live stream. Before we exit, I will state we were doing rolling for topics, and then we came up with Favorite drag performances.
So we're thinking of preparing a special episode for that.
On Friday,
We are considering digging through the
my playlist. My
your
playlist
more
of
than
videos.
800 videos of shows, and we hope to find and highlight the ones we consider best, and hope that we don't get into trouble.
I don't want to offend anyone, especially our beloved Odivas, but we will highlight the ones we like the most. So that's the thing. We may not be able to play the audio for copyright concerns, but we will at least go over the videos and talk about what we like, including some of my videos that were already blocked by YouTube, so they only exist in my private collection. So I'm excited.
So that's for Friday.
Yes, yes. So once again, I'm Rocky.
And I'm Toby.
And this is Baduy Pride. See you on Friday, but also tomorrow. Don't forget, we're still coming on tomorrow.
Friday. That was a sentient ship in Power Pack. Thanks for watching.
Oh my god. I'm not justifying that, number one. Bye.